friends, this is Caitlin. Welcome back to my channel. In honor of New Year's Eve being this weekend, I've decided to share this really fun Sizzix Thinlits and Tim Holtz very much die cut and layered card. So I'm starting out by cutting two layers or two copies, I guess, with many layers of the Simon Says Stamp exclusive Walter. It's this adorable little penguin and he comes with a bunch of different accessories. So we're going to cut all of those layers out twice from this white cardstock. You can see I have the main base piece over to the side. I'm going to cut that out of black. And I'm also cutting one layer each from the two different Forest Shadows Thinlit set. And you can see over on the side, I also have the Moonlight set. We're just going to use the moon from that. Even though it's a Halloween technically set, that moon is perfect for year-round card making, in my humble opinion. And then the last set that we'll be adding in at the end are the letters and the little banner die from the Santa greetings. So I just thought it would be super fun to make this little wintry scene card, but all out of die cuts. And this is going to be a lot of ink blending, a lot of layers, but I think it was absolutely worth it because it is absolutely adorable. So each of these penguins has these four main kind of layering pieces that you put over the kind of base solid penguin. And this one, Sizzix makes videos sharing like exactly how to layer and what colors they recommend for each layer. But this one specifically, I think you can definitely do just from looking at the packaging, which I love. Because some of the other Sizzix Thinlits and Colorize that I've tried before, I needed that guide. So these ones were really easy, and the other background pieces I used are super easy to assemble, so definitely not a problem. It was a little bit tedious just going through to cut everything out. But in the grand scheme of things, this was a really great project. I am still kind of trying to get back into my kind of card making routine and getting back into crafting. To be honest with you, in some ways it feels like I've kind of lost my card making mojo this month. For anyone who didn't hear before, I ended up having emergency surgery at the beginning of December. And so I'm still kind of recovering and getting back into the groove, and I still just feel tired a lot faster. And normally card making is kind of my way to rest, but for some reason after all of this I just kind of feel like I'm in a little bit of a funk. So this card was kind of a really fun way for me to feel like I was getting back into the swing of things. And ink blending is, I mean, as much as I love to color, right now it feels like a lot of pressure. Ink blending still feels very free and kind of easy. So that's why I think this card came so naturally and was a little less intimidating. So I'm just popping in those pieces back into my cardstock that I die cut them from, just so that I knew everything was going to be nice and smooth and I wouldn't have to worry about all of those little pieces. I used black soot and lost shadow on the penguins, and then for these little bow ties I am using the Victorian, I don't remember, I'll have all the colors listed down in the description for you, but it's like either the velvet or Victorian velvet, something like that, that pink, that rosy kind of dusty pink. I brought in some yellows and oranges for his little beak and his feet. I just love how those kind of colors pop up against everything else that we're going to be using. And I use the same yellow for the stars. I just didn't refill my brush. So I really liked how that kind of looked, and it tied everything in together because they're still the same tone. They're just a little bit less saturated. So I just thought that was cute. And again, popping in those little tiny pieces into the cardstock just makes them so much easier to ink blend. It still is a little tedious because you're kind of trying to put them back into their spots, but in the long run, it's much easier than trying to chase them around your card, like your desktop. For the forest, I went in with the pine needles. I thought that was a really fun kind of color and would bring in a lot of the blue sky that we're going to be doing. So I did a kind of evenish layer all the way across, and then deepened up the top parts of the trees for this bigger back layer, just kind of adding in and really pressing in that color. I did that at the top because I knew at the bottom I was going to be bringing in some of that black soot and kind of dragging that up. So there wasn't any reason to layer the extra green at the bottom where it would be covered anyway. I popped this out of that cardstock, and then we will do a similar process on the smaller tree grouping, the little couple of trees that go more towards the front. You can definitely layer these however you want. And I love that this set, because they're evergreens, could be a year-round background if you wanted something kind of summery and more like a campfire setup. These would still be completely useful. So for these closer trees, I also added some ice spruce to the top just to give them a little bit of a highlight. And then again, went in with that black soot at the bottom. My moon got the front part got a layer of lost shadow, and then the back got a layer of hickory smoke. And I also went in with the leftover ink from my black soot ink pad, or blending foam, that's what they're called, blending foams. So without kind of inking up any extra, just to deepen that up a little bit, because that gray just wasn't standing out as much as I wanted it to through the gaps there for those craters. So then we jumped into assembling, and this is just so stinking cute. So I started out with those two black cardstock bases, and you kind of layer in the more solid piece of the penguin. It just leaves his little feet and eyes out. And then, like I said before, these are pretty self-explanatory. The second black layer goes on, then the larger white layer, the smaller white layer, and then all of the little extra bonus features. I really wanted to darken up the spaces that were kind of poking through on his head. So I just took a little black marker and filled those in for where the die cut had little holes or gaps missing. That's part of like the whole colorized thing with the Thinlits. And I kind of just chopped these up a little bit to help it be a little faster. This card did take about an hour and a half. So this was definitely a fun one to edit. But I just love how sweet it turned out. And I did take a break in between sections. So the little beak, and there's like a little accent where the yellow part goes, a little yellow highlight on top, were so cute. I did use this embellishment wand from This Calls for Confetti, and I love it because the one side has the wax stick and the other side has a little kind of pokey tool. So it was easier to go in and kind of shift things here and there as needed when my nails kind of didn't do the trick. And I added on their little feet, and then we'll add on their little bow ties here in a second too, which I think are just so sweet. The set did come with a scarf and like a little Santa hat, but I knew I wanted these to be New Year's Eve penguins, so I thought them being in little bow ties was very appropriate. And as far as I know, Simon Says Stamp does still have these available on their website. So it was like a gift with purchase kind of thing. If you bought certain Tim Holtz products, you got it as a bonus for free. But if you missed out on that promotion, and you really want Walter, they do still have the set available in general. So once I had my two little penguins ready to go, it was time to ink up my night sky, or my whole background, I guess. So I started out with Uncharted Mariner. This is probably my favorite blue out of all of the distress inks. And I did kind of leave a little pencil mark for myself where I thought my back line of trees was going to go. I deepened up just the right hand side of my sky with the black soot ink. It's going to be opposite our moon. And then I brought in that same pine needles color across the bottom. Again, because I had penciled in that mark of where my trees were going to go, I knew where I wanted my land to start. And then I did the front section with that same ice spruce that we used on the top of those 2 tree cutout. I got my moon into place, and I knew that I was going to trim off the extra that's kind of hanging over the edge, so that was not a problem. This one is so easy to line up. You just pop that upper moon layer on and you're good to go. I added a little bit of liquid glue really thinly to the back of the bigger tree die and kind of got that into place, lining up that tallest tree with the top edge of my cardstock. And then added on this lighter set of trees, again, a little off to the right to kind of balance out that moon. And then trimmed off all of the extra from the back, just because I think it's easier for me to kind of see everything that way. And then what did we do next? We popped on some of those sweet little stars. I had a bunch cut out, but I decided to just go with 3 because I really didn't want them to pull attention. And at this point, I wasn't positive about where I was going to put my sentiment. So for my backing paper, I decided to go with this really beautiful deep gray wood pattern from the Honeybee Stamps Grain and Grunge paper pad. This is one of my most used pattern papers. It's just beautiful. So I liked the dark gray. I didn't want it to be a stark black because my penguins aren't stark black. So I think the deep gray really helps to bring everything together and balances out and frames that whole scene literally. And it ties in those darker colors from our penguins. So I also went in with this sandy scrap of paper that I had from a different Honeybee stamp set. In hindsight, I didn't have to use this paper. I could have used anything because I'm going to end up adding glitter glue to all of these cutouts. But at the time, I wasn't sure that I was going to do that. So I liked that the sand texture kind of gave it the idea of sparkles without actually having any 3D texture to it. So I cut the little banner from the Santa greetings. So they're going to be kind of holding this string between each other. And we're going to add the 2024 cutouts to the banner. But then I decided that there wasn't enough going on. I did pop up my penguins with a little bit of foam to help them kind of stand out. These are the super thin black foam squares from Simon Says Stamp as well. So I got them adhered on, and I did them kind of staggered. So it looks like one is just a little bit further behind the other, like they're bringing in 2024. But like I said, once I got the numbers on the bottom, it just felt kind of unbalanced. And I was going to put Happy New Year on the inside of the card. But then once I saw everything together, I really decided that I wanted to add Happy New Year on the front. So I took those same letter dies from the Santa greeting set, and I cut them out of that sand pattern paper, as well as the scrap of the same dark gray that we used for our mat. The other part that I had trimmed away, I cut them so that they would stand out because I knew between the dark colors and the moon, putting these across the scene, in some places the white would stand out and in some places it wouldn't. So I really wanted that back kind of drop shadow to help them stand out and be a little more legible. I think the most tedious part of this whole card was actually putting together all of these letters, but in the end, I definitely think it was worth it. I did have to play around a little bit, messing with this kind of layout. I wasn't sure if I wanted this kind of left to right stack or I wanted something more centered, but in the end, I decided that that left to right configuration kind of filled the space a little nicer, and I just kind of like how it naturally moved my eye around. And I felt kind of weird covering up so much of this background, but really with doing ink blending versus Copic coloring, I had invested way less time kind of in those features. So I felt like once I thought of it that way, it wasn't as hard to kind of put this sentiment all the way across. And again, I think it just really very clearly explains what's going on. And then once the glitter is added, these letters pop like crazy. So I will tell you that I went in with this silver glitter glue, and I'm showing you the final version when I pick up the card in the video with only one layer. But at the picture at the very end, I did go back in and add a second layer. And I think that it makes the whole thing so much better. So if you're going to do this, I definitely recommend taking the time to do 2 layers of your glitter glue or stickles or whatever you're going to use. But yeah, I am hoping to get back into the groove, and then in January I will also be doing an updated video talking about all of my analytics and kind of how my card making journey is going. So keep an eye out for that if you're interested, but I'm also going to try to just be a little more present on here and getting back into the groove as we head into 2024. So I hope that you have an absolutely amazing new year. I hope great things come to you in 2024. I will see you again next week, and until then, happy crafting, guys.